Welcome into another episode of Just Another Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Just Another Chris. And in today's episode, I sit down with one of my good friends, amazingly talented Corinne Decost. She is an actress, all-around good human. And funny enough, we had to actually re-record this because of the actor strikes and the writer strikes that's going on right now, because Corinne is an actress. We talk about the strikes that's going on and how you can even help out. We learn about how she got into acting and some of the projects that she's got going on that she is allowed to talk about. And we even tease a little bit about how we met. It's kind of a crazy and wild story. And we also talk about work-life balance. I know it's something that I need to work on and have been working on in the last couple of years, but it's something that creative types struggle with, especially if your day job is also your hobby. So we dive into that and a lot more. So enough rambling, let's dive on into episode 10 of Just Another Podcast. Enjoy. Hey, Corinne, welcome back, I should say.
Yes,
You're back.
thank you. It's good to see you again.
It's always great. It's always great seeing you. So yes, we already recorded an episode of the podcast
We did.
not too long ago, and then unfortunately, right when it was done, we got some news that we weren't able to actually use it because we talk about a little bit of your past and your project and stuff you got going on because you're an actress. So
I am.
why don't you give us a proper intro of who you are and what you can actually say?
Hi, my name is Corinne Decost. I am an actress in the LA area. I am originally from New Hampshire, went to school in Boston, did some stuff in San Francisco. Now I live here. And of course, right now we are dealing with the SAG-AFTRA strike. I am not SAG. I have done some SAG projects in the past pre-strike that I am working towards my SAG eligibility. I am in one of SAG's sister unions at the American Guild of Variety Artists. So as a sister union, I want to uphold and uplift my sister in her fight for what they're looking to get, more money, what they are supposed to be paid for things. So I am not supposed to talk about anything that is considered a struck project. So any movies, television shows that are held up by the AMPTP, Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. That's what it is. And that's basically any of the big companies that you would think of that own movies and television. I am not supposed to promote anything like that. So even a little reference to certain movies that have just come out or anything like that could be considered promotion and could get me barred from SAG in the future. And I would really like to work in this industry again. So thank you, Chris, very much for letting us re-record this podcast so that I can talk about what I'm doing and what it's like being an actress and living the dream in Los Angeles without talking about stuff that would ruin my future in the industry.
Yeah, don't want that. We don't want that. How are you navigating this interesting time of trying to be an actress and get out there and promoting your stuff, which you can't really do, but also working in general? How are you actually going about that?
I did send an email to SAG at the beginning of the strike. It did take a little bit for them to get back to me because I'm positive that they were swamped with a million emails of what am I supposed to be doing? What am I allowed to do? What can I do? And it's actually a lot more open than I think the general public thinks that it is. Because I will see comments on stuff about people being scabs because they're working on something, and a lot of stuff that you would think oh, that's a big actress doing an acting thing, that must be scabbing. That's not how that works. So it is specifically working with a struck project with this Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers, with that group, which is a very large overseer of the industry, but there's a lot of acting gigs that aren't part of that. So video games, reality television, game shows, commercials. Commercials are a huge part of the industry that are not part of this. It's not television or movies. Music videos, any kind of live performance, so theater or theme park or anything like that. Any of that would not fall under strike stuff, as well as any non-union film, micro budget film, student film, that kind of stuff. So there's still a lot that you can do. It's mostly, for me personally, I there's less background gigs. So I would do background gigs for, I would usually make like $125 for the day, and it's usually longer than an 8-hour day. Like they would usually hold you like 10 to 12 hours. So it's not great pay for sure, but that you'd usually make around 125-ish for the day. And it was a good like side gig to hold you between other gigs. So, you'd work 3 days doing something, and then you'd pick up a background gig, and then another 3 days doing something else, and you kind of use that to fill in the blanks. But there's still a lot. I'm still working plenty. I'm very, very lucky to be working plenty right now, so it's not getting in the way of what I'm doing. But I am also non-union, so I need to be very aware of not becoming a scab myself and not taking any work with these truck companies, or anything that would be distributed by them or anything like that. So it's a fine line. It's a dance, but
yeah. For the people at home, can you clarify what a scab is? Maybe they don't know what that term is.
yeah. So a scab would just be somebody who crosses the picket line and takes work from the people who are trying, like there are the actors SAG who are the union who are trying to work with these companies, and they have contracts that they're negotiating. You should not go work for these companies while this negotiation is happening, because it's just saying like, you don't need SAG, just work with us instead. And SAG is a good thing for the industry. They have a lot of rights and protections for us on set, that like making sure that like certain safety protocols are in place and things like that really aren't needed on sets. Case in point,
Yeah.
people getting very hurt or dying on sets are things that like change rules in SAG. So we do need SAG. We need people to protect us. Smaller budget productions don't have those protections, and that's like kind of part of the risk that you take with them. But sometimes those smaller budget protections are put on by people who know what they're supposed to be doing in the industry. So they do take those protections for you. But that's basically what it's about, is not getting in the way of SAG trying to work for the rights of actors. And as a not somebody who's like in the movies or whatever, I, as a background actor, will benefit from the strike eventually, because they are looking to up the background rates. They're looking to have us get paid. So sometimes they expect you to come on set, hair, makeup ready. And that means for me, I need a good hour and a half to like get like camera ready makeup, like not just like right now, like casual day to day makeup. I need to be camera ready,
And
and I'm
pay
not
for
being
it.
paid for that
Yeah.
time. Yeah. So
Pay for it yourself.
like they're looking to pay people for that time. If they expect you to be camera ready, you will be paid an hour. I mean, it might take you 2 hours, but you'll be paid an hour before you get to set, because they're expecting you to do this work unpaid. They're also looking to have more rules and restrictions around self-taping and auditions. So for a lot of non-actors, we now post-pandemic do a lot of self-tapes. So just like putting your phone on a tripod and then doing a little audition and then sending in that video. We do a lot of that, and it's a lot. You do a lot of them. I would do 20 in a week sometimes. And it's really hard to do that because you have to memorize a script, and it takes you at least an hour to do a self-tape for one project, because you have to know the script, you have to perform it, you have to like the performance, you have to like tweak the video so it looks just right. And it's like, if you've ever made a TikTok and it's like a 5-second TikTok, it takes you like an hour to put together. Like, how long it takes you to do something like that. So this would take forever. Auditions take forever, and they're actually looking to limit the amount of self-taping that happens, and possibly pay actors for auditions, which would be
Interesting.
huge.
Dang. I didn't know
Because
that.
they wouldn't ask for less auditions, probably. They would free up your schedule, but you probably wouldn't be called in for as many things. Like,
Hmm.
you get called in for a lot that they may or may not even watch your tape, but it's like, oh, it's free, so why not ask for all of these tapes? But it's like you just asked for however many hours of labor that,
Yeah.
you just kind of throw to the side. So it would be nice to get paid for that audition time, because it's not like a job interview kind of thing where you sit down, they're like, who's this person who we're going to be working with for a very long time? It's like, who's this background actor who's going to show up for a day, and we're going to tell them what to do, and if they're not doing it right, we're going to say, actually, you over there, can you stand there instead? And then that's it. Like, it's not that
Yeah.
complicated, and it's not like, whether or not somebody can do something, and like, from the self-tape audition whether or not somebody can remember lines or portray something. And it's a little insulting for it to be treated like a job interview every time, when you are basically doing that self tape for one day of work where you're being paid a minimum wage,
Well, and
because
also,
it's
yeah, and
preparation for
also,
that.
well, yeah, totally, and
Yeah.
and also, aren't they working or trying to fight the what's it called? Basically, like for background actors, like to use their likeness for indefinitely for no pay of like stealing
Yeah.
like your face, or like basically like 3D scan you and to make you an asset, basically.
Yeah, totally.
And
Yeah, that stuff's kind of terrifying.
yeah, and so if I'm not mistaken, that's something that's like being fought like against.
I do also want to say on the podcast, I do not want to be seen as a spokesperson for the strike. I've gone to support the strike, both when it was just the Writers Guild. I went and picketed with them, and with SAG-AFTRA, I went and picketed with them. But I am not a voice for the strike. I know things that I have found from friends, from researching online, et cetera, et cetera. But I do not want people to look at me as the person who has all the answers. I'm just a girl who's trying my best over
Why do you think I
here.
called you onto the podcast? I want everything. I need to
Right.
know everything. No, not
Expert
at all.
on everything in the world. Yeah.
Exactly. There's so much that can be talked about with all of that. Like I love the idea of having a new technology, a new tool to play with, right? And AI
Right.
is like the biggest one right now. And the whole writers thing about them worried about chat GPT absolutely can be an effect, but there still has to be a human element to input all that stuff, put it together, and I
Yeah.
think it's a great tool to get an idea started. Like I've done that
Yeah.
multiple times where I was trying to figure out a new YouTube channel name and I asked Chat GPT to help me. And I just
Yeah.
typed in channel names and came up with ideas for titles for videos and all this stuff. It's super helpful and a super brilliant tool. And so I don't think that aspect will ever replace a actual writer
Yeah.
because someone else kind of put it together. It just is a tool that makes your job a little bit easier. And 20 years ago, it was the same thing with film photography and digital photography. The same topic came up like, oh my gosh, it's not real. It's not real. It's fake. It's
Totally.
going to eliminate photographers in general because now you have computers doing it all for you. It's same topic, just a different like
Yeah.
side of things,
Definitely.
and that's how I see it. But like, some of these other things where people are like, oh, we're going to use AI to like create 3D models of a person and then only pay them one day rate, which could only be a couple $100. And
Yeah.
then that's where I don't agree with. I think it'd be really cool if there was a way to like, as a, like for you, for instance, let's say you want to do background acting and now they 3D scan you, but that's your asset that if somebody wants to hire you, that they have to then pay to use that every single time and that you provide
Yeah.
with that. You provide that for them. And that way it's like
Hey,
easier
I
for you. You don't have to
also,
show up on set or anything. Maybe it's like you change your clothes or you just have different outfits that you have for your 3D modeled person of yourself that you can just
yeah.
give them. I think that's fun and cool and it creates a whole new way to make money. That's just how I see it.
A regular everyday person who is not personally affected by this. I do see ways that it can be used that I can I can see working. One argument I personally kind of have for using some AI instead of actors is in particular child actors. I do not think that child actors should be utilized as much as they are. I don't think that it is a good place for kids to be uplifted to that level of stardom where the
Sure.
entire world is commenting on them, and then they have to like deal with that stuff the rest of their lives. Like there's a balance between yes, we should use it, and yes, we shouldn't use it at all kind of thing. But like, I think that there is an element to what if we used AI instead of traumatizing a child?
Right.
Maybe we could find something there that would be, healthy and still protect actors on set and everything. I have faith that SAG is striking to find a good, healthy balance. But of course, the CEOs who are making 20 million something per year, not 20,000. No, that's what we're making. We're making that. They're sitting all pretty and not wanting to give anybody anything at all. And it's 13% of SAG members make enough to have health insurance through SAG, which is $26,000 a year. So, 87% of us are not making that much. We're not making $20,000 off of it,
No.
You have to supplement your job.
I mean, even for me, for like the longest time, until I got more involved into, well, I'm not really in your industry. I'm more on like the what they call it, the new media industry, which is just YouTube, internet stuff. Yeah. But if you see somebody on TV, they're not millionaires.
Oh my God.
Somebody in that I know we talked about in the last episode, but we went into a little bit more that we can't now. But there was an actress that showed her like income from this show that she had on one of these streaming services, and she was like a regular, like show regular, and she made like $26 or something like that off of like 40 or 50 episodes from that, whatever it was. And she's like, you walk out on the street and she's a famous person. And she was also saying how like even during filming of that show, they still had to have second jobs, like working at like a restaurant just to be able to live. But they were celebrities.
Right, exactly. And I know exactly who you're talking about. And this is an actress who was nude on screen. That's so much vulnerability to ask from somebody in perpetuity to stream forever. And she did this for what it was essentially a minimum wage day rate. And that does not include her time auditioning, her time learning her lines, her time getting costumed, because usually you have to come in on a separate day to have the costume to see if it fits, so that if they need to make alterations, take something in so it looks right on screen, to fit all of that stuff in there. All of that stuff is not that's included in that day rate. So they're not getting extra day rate for this other preparation stuff that they're doing. And then they only get paid basically minimum wage, and they aren't supposed to, when you're on a show that big, you're not supposed to compete with that show, because you can't book other projects, because this show is filming more episodes that they haven't written the scripts for, so they don't know how much they're going to need you. And they can write around stuff, but they're not trying to do that unless like you're super famous. If you're super famous, you can kind of argue like, right around me. But if you're not super famous, then they're like, well, that's too bad. You have to come. And so you can't juggle multiple series. You have to kind of stick to this one series that you're being a big part of right now. So you need to supplement your income. And that is rough. It's very rough. None of my actor friends have one job.
Yeah. Because you're spending, I mean, I don't know what she was, amount of time she was putting into it. I mean, it has to have been a lot, but it's like a full-time job plus some when you're filming a lot of this. Because even before, around that time, I mean, TV shows were known to have 20 plus episodes in a season. And if you guys are watching stuff now, you'll notice there's only like 12, maybe, of episodes.
Yeah,
so they're working. And they're working like, 6 months to film all that stuff and putting all their time and effort into that, and it's not enough to survive on. Like that's this mind blowing facts that are coming out to light these days. It's just because they're on TV doesn't mean they're just some millionaire, rich off, well off individual. They're fighting and struggling every single day. Now, of course, this doesn't really affect like the big ones, like the Robert Downey Jr.'s and the Scarlett Johanssons. They're okay, right. But they're like in the top 1%. They're on the 1%ers. Everybody else is struggling because most of them don't, like you were saying, they don't even make the minimum amounts to even afford health insurance, which is like what, $26,000. Yeah. Which that's not a lot of money. So that puts it into grand scheme of how much they're actually making. It's just crazy. Yeah. I also wanted to ask you this, which is how can people, I don't want to say regular people. That's terrible wordage. I apologize. But to the audience, just people enjoying content, how can they actually support this? What can they do? What's their part in this?
If you never are looking to join the industry, you don't really have to worry about posting about movies and stuff right now. It would only affect future SAG eligibility, is posting about the movies and such right now. But if you're ever looking to join SAG, that's not something you have to worry about. I have to worry about it because I would like to be part of the SAG community someday, but you don't have to worry about it. They are not looking for people to boycott streaming services. They are not looking for people to boycott the box office. I've heard a suggestion that they may be holding those requests for future parts of negotiating. If they continue to not get what they want, they may start asking people to support us. Could you boycott this? But they are not asking for that right now, which means that if they do ask for that in the future, it would actually be more helpful for it to be more of a staggering number. So that means keep watching stuff right now. Keep going to the movies right now. Keep your streaming services. You don't have to cancel them. Stay tuned, stay informed, keep updated on entertainment news. It'll be there. You want to go through multiple sources because there are some sources that are speaking directly from these struck companies, because obviously the struck companies own news sources and things like that they can kind of speak directly through. There was that really, it kind of went viral, interview with an anonymous studio executive who said, the end game is to allow things to drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their houses, and said it was a cruel but necessary evil. No. That was obviously not from one of their news sources. They wouldn't want to publish things about themselves that said that. And once that interview came out, more kind stuff about the studio executives started coming up from their own news sources. So it's kind of like, look at your sources. Who's saying this stuff? Going directly to SAG, they have Instagram accounts and all of that. They're very up to date on social media. They've got their own websites where you can kind of check in, see what is happening, see what they're asking for. But right now, really, all you have to do to support, maybe if you wanted to post about it in solidarity or spread the word about what's going on. But right now, as a regular, average, everyday citizen, they are not really asking you to do anything, but hopefully keep enjoying the content that so much love and joy has gone into creating thus far. And hopefully people will be paid better for what they're doing.
Yeah, no, for sure. There is also I can't remember what it's called, but I'll leave a link in the description of the podcast here if you guys want to help out. But there's a fund you can donate to that helps.
Yes, there is.
That helps the both sides, the writers and the actors. I can't remember what it's called, but I'm sure if you know what it is, if not, I'll find it and I'll put it in the description.
There is a fund that exactly, that will help out of work actors right now. And I mean, we out of work everybody, because it's not just affecting the actors and the writers. There's a lot of people on those sets. IATSE, like the tech union, is also kind of in a weird negotiation phase right now. So there's a lot of looming strikes. It seems like it's not just the actors and the writers who are um, upset about what they should be making and what they are actually making. And everyone really needs to be treated better and paid for their labor.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
everyone should, even outside, just in life. Hey, real quick, I wanted to remind you guys about the members area. Yeah, there are some amazing perks by becoming a member of the Spitfire Club, such as extended versions of Just Another Podcast, and extended versions of YouTube videos, and early access to said YouTube videos, and exclusive monthly signed photos sent to your door, and access to the members exclusive Spitfire Club t-shirt. But that's not all. There is now an exclusive members only Zoom call. Yeah, we have our club meeting. We sit down, we chat, we talk about things that we're into, things that we're struggling with, things we want to improve, and special guest appearances from other like-minded content creators. Ugh, it's so much fun. If you want to become a member today, there is a link in the description below. I'll see you in there. I will say this.
Yeah.
It hasn't affected the general public yet, right? Everyone's still at home. They're still enjoying their new shows that are coming out. Everything's great. Yeah. But we're in a buffer zone. Where there's content. That buffer zone is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and there's not going to be anything new to watch. It's all going to be the old stuff. Or shows that you are waiting for a new season. Well, guess what? They're shut down. They're not being filmed anymore. And one of my favorite ones that's currently on air still is no longer going to happen. And we were lucky. Yeah, it's a whole thing. But I want to support it the best I can. But it's going to be years and years before your current favorite shows that will ever be back. Yeah. If at all. Sometimes it happens where they just will get canceled during all of this. I know one of my favorite shows of all time. I can't say it. Almost was about to say it. I mean, I technically could say it, but I still want to show support. But which it's a weird scenario where I'm not really in that there, but there might be a day, who knows, I could be called up and be like, hey, we want you to direct something.
Totally. Don't mess with your paycheck.
Yeah, exactly. So, but one of my favorite shows back in 2004, when we had not the first one, but one of the last. The
2007-ish. Yeah,
got canceled, and the show was left on a cliffhanger, and it was one of the heights of one of the great shows. Like at its peak, it was one of the top performing shows on. I can't remember what network it was now. NBC, ABC, I don't remember, but. And if you guys should know what show I'm talking about. I literally based my intro of my YouTube channel off of that show. So if you guys, there you go. But
now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right, there you go. It got canceled, and so some of your shows could be a victim of this if it goes on too long. So that's why I kind of wanted to bring up what we can do, just as quote unquote regular people. I mean everyone's special, but like outside of the industry, what you can do to kind of support this, because we want it to end as fast as possible for a lot of for their own, the actors themselves, to be able to sustain their own life and all that, like being able to pay their bills, get medical insurance, all that stuff. But if you want to be selfish, think of yourself and the shows that you love. This is the time to show some support, because the longer it goes on, the longer your shows are in limbo, if not dying off. So
we're definitely seeing shows are being pushed back for, like, it was going to be released next year, but now we're looking at like 2025 or later, depending on how long this thing goes on. And waiting, because the season came out last year, waiting another 2 years means waiting 3 years between seasons. But a lot of that hype is going to die down. The actors in the project are going to be like, I've kind of outgrown this. I want to do these other things. I'm kind of interested in this right now. It will be harder to gather these people together again. If you've ever tried to gather, your high school friends for something, it's harder to gather people after like time has passed. And so there's a little mini effect that we're starting to see is a lot of the fall lineups have obviously been announced because we're basically in fall now. School's starting to get started in some places around the country.
Mm-hmm.
And right now is where new television is usually starting. Right now is where you'd see sitcoms kind of starting back up and that kind of thing starting back up. And that obviously is not happening. We are pushing towards more reality television right now because reality television does not have these same protections, which is a whole other thing to talk about. Bethany Frankel actually was saying about how she has done years and years of a particular show and has not received any residuals for any of it ever. That's why she has so many side companies and crap that she does. So there's a lot of protections around reality that also doesn't exist. And a lot of reality contestants will come out and talk about how mistreated they are on set. And then there's children who were literally born into reality television, kids who were born on television, born on TV, have been raised on television. What's protecting their childhoods? Any kind of privacy. Imagine if, like, for me, if my parents' divorce was on television and like everyone could comment about whose side they were on and like, oh, why is Corinne talking to this parent at all after they did this, this, and this? Like having that judgment on everything in your life.
Yeah.
That's so much.
It's like a live
reality
Facebook feed
TV
or something
is
like
a
that.
lot. Yeah. And like there's not any real protections for reality TV. There's not really any protections for kids born into YouTuber life. Like that kind of stuff is not part of the conversation right now, but I think it should be and should be part of future conversations of what are we doing here exactly? Like who's benefiting from this? Who are we hurting from doing this? Yeah, but yeah, so we're going to see a lot of reality television, whether that's for the greater good or not. It's coming.
I want to support, but I'm like, I don't have to. But I don't like. I'm a type of person where like I don't necessarily need to be told, like to do the right thing. Like I just try and do the right thing regardless of it all. And I remember I went and saw a movie. And I posted it on my Instagram stories, and I said, I think I captioned like it's big boom time, so I can kind of figure out what I went and saw. But I was like, no one else is posting, no one's doing this stuff. I know I'm not in that world, so I think I ended up deleting it. And later, like halfway through the day after I saw it, I'm like, oh, I really want to share my thoughts about it. I'm like, this feels weird. And then I went and saw the other half of that movie, the other little companion that was brought into it, and I'm like. I was like, go and get dressed up and do some stuff. I'm like, oh, but this kind of feels weird. And then I did something last night where I went to a thing and I didn't post anything about it, which was shocking for me to not share this type of thing that I went and did. And so I'm trying that. But at the same time, I don't have to be doing that. And then, but again, I really want to show support because I have friends like you and other people in the industry that they are being affected. And I don't want to be the only one being like, hey guys, I can do whatever I want. I don't care.
Yeah. I said, you're totally free to do that stuff if you're not looking to join the union in the future. But I totally get it. It does feel weird during some of this time period where it's been, you have to step back. Should I be posting this? Maybe I shouldn't talk about this thing right now. It's kind of been nice to like, I got all dressed up for something that I'm sure you already know what I'm referring to.
I was so surprised. I was actually like looking forward to seeing like your costumes.
Yeah. But I got all dressed up and I did take pictures, but those pictures are just for me right now. And that's kind of nice and different for me to do something that I kind of took that like moment where I realized, oh, I'm definitely not supposed to be posting about this. And I realized that before going to do this. And I was like, well, that's not going to stop me. Who cares if I can't post it? I'm going to go enjoy it and enjoy it for me. And it had been a really long time since I had done that at all, because there is a kind of like, as an artist, you want to monetize as much as you can and like put your name out there as much as you can. That like naturally, normally I would be posting that stuff because then I can tag the brands and have my social media pop up when you're searching for these brands and like
Yeah.
things like that, that just those little things that kind of boost you
There's no day
on
off.
the algorithm. But like sometimes it's kind of nice to be like, you know what, we don't have to do that all the time.
Yeah.
Let's just be a human instead of like a starving artist all the time.
Yeah. It's, I guess, a good segue into a question that I'd asked in the previous podcast. Um,
Yes.
so maybe we'll just switch gears a little bit into that. But having the work-life balance, like where do you find time to be able to do that, where you can just have something for yourself that even though it's in the same realm and world as your job? Because I know for me, like I make content and I try, like educate and all this stuff on like instant photography, which kind of took over the channel. So I try to find things that I enjoy and incorporate it into that same thing. So I share a lot about nerdy, even fun stuff. But
Yeah.
I tend to always be thinking about, oh, I'm gonna go do something with my friends or family or whatever. I'm like, oh, how can I monetize this? How can I
Right.
make
Yeah.
something out of this cool thing that I'm gonna go do? And I know I've annoyed friends about it because they don't understand what I do. I'm like, I know, but like I could like still have fun and then make some money. So like, I
Yeah.
how this is mostly a question for me. How do you do it? What do you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get it because I don't do a lot of it, but I do sometimes influencer stuff where I'll make a TikTok or something and I'll get to go to the event for free. And so like that kind of thing where there is some sort of exchange for me creating content is a like a push to, oh, I should create more content. The more that I create of content that these companies can see, the more they'll want to hire me out and do more stuff. So I totally get that.
Yeah.
Of like, or just being like, it would be a tax write-off if I turned it into a business
That's the other
venture
one.
instead of
That's the other one I tell everybody. They're like, "You're spending so much money." I'm like, "Yeah, but like, why give it to the government? I could just give it to
yeah,
myself
yeah.
as long as I
I know,
record
I
some of
get
it."
it. Yeah. You are asking the wrong person about work-life balance right now because I am days away from jumping into like me basically working for 2 months straight. I am
Yeah.
super booked September and October, which is booked and blessed. I
Yeah.
am not complaining at all. But I mean, it's kind of when you're an artist, it is a little feast or famine where I'm just headed out of a little bit of a famine and I love a nice little feast. So there's times where you have to be like, no, no, I am working right now. We need to be paying these bills that we're supposed to be paid, and we're gonna track forward and make sure everything is all squared away, and money set aside for Christmas and spoiling the relatives and friends and stuff, and kind of getting yourself together on that front. But there's usually there's a balance when I am on like a less heavy schedule. So what I did this past summer, I worked as a teacher at a summer theater camp, which was a great little like kind of in between acting gigs thing where I still got to be kind of working in the industry and working in what I like to be doing without it being like exactly what I'm normally doing. But that was like, a 5 day a week thing. And I didn't want to entirely step out of what I'm normally doing. So I would be doing gigs on the weekend, take on like a little music video project or background in a non-union, non-SAG interfering project or anything like that that I could take on. But then it's like, okay, well, that was my weekend. So where's your social life, Corinne? What else are you doing? So you do kind of have to plan stuff. And I am a planner, and I think that that does help me a lot with what I do because I have a very clear schedule. I actually keep a little agenda book of everything all mapped out. Like this day is set aside. I have a gig on this day. I am not losing out on this money. This sounds like it'll be a really fun project. I'm doing that on this day. This day before it, I want to be a little bit more available. Because I want to get laundry done before the big gig. I want to do this before the big gig, or like whatever that you need to do. But like maybe there's a little bit more leeway. Maybe you can take something in the morning or something like that. But then I do also like to have days where I'm just not working, where I have specifically set aside this day is for me. I am spending this day doing something for me, and it helps to plan that out in advance,
Yeah.
which seems a little counterintuitive, but like having a movie day where you bought the tickets for the movie, so don't waste your money, go see the movie. You bought those tickets, don't take any gigs on this day. This day is for you. Or, we're going to go to a theme park, or and sometimes it's nice to just schedule a day where you're just planning to spend the day at home playing a video game or something. But
Yeah.
just trying to like schedule that time that is specifically for you. For me, coming up in the next couple of months, I will be spending 5 days a week at one job that I'm not supposed to talk about.
I was
And
gonna ask
then
that.
a day a week I'll be doing choreography for school musical, and we're just rehearsing one day a week. But that means I'm working 6 days a week through September and October. That other day a week, I'll probably want to sleep. If I don't want to sleep, I will want to hang out with my friends or my partner, or go grocery shopping, get errands done, do other things, like the
Yeah.
things that you need to do to be a human. So you kind of like, I'm already looking at September and October and being like, okay, that one day a week, we're probably going to hold that. I'm holding off on auditioning for stuff right now because I'm realizing I don't have time to offer to anybody. And there are other projects that will be asking for my time that, I mean, I want to give my time to, obviously. So that, like, I might need to do a costume fitting or something like that. And I'll need those Monday nights or Tuesday when I'm not at the school, that, like, I'll need that time. So I will need to find that time for myself where I'm not just going absolutely crazy with, oh my God, I have so much work. And people think that like I'm having fun all the time. I am having fun a lot. Don't get me wrong. But people think that like I'm having fun partying, doing whatever, hanging out with my friends, like fooling around on set. It is hard work.
Yeah.
I'm going to be pulling some 12, 13-hour days a lot, like
Yeah.
possibly 5 days a week. And that those days add up where like you work for 12 hours and then you want to get like 8 hours of sleep. So that means you have 4 hours that you're not working. Oh, but don't forget that you want to shower, you want to eat. You might need to get groceries or get gas or like literally anything, where like that's basically your 4 hours. Like you scroll TikTok for 30 minutes and then you're cutting into your sleep time. So you really do need to find that balance, and it can be tough. And then like
Yeah.
when you suddenly come into those times of a little bit more famine, it's like, well, your schedule's opened up, but you want to be more like cautious with the money that you're spending. So yeah, I want to go hang out with my friends, but ooh, we want to go out. I don't know if that's a great idea right now because I'm not bringing in what I'm spending today. So it's always going to be a balance. But
It's a hustle.
you know,
That's
you can.
exactly you're grinding and you're hustling. I get it because I feel like the moment I stop to take a break, like I'm not making any money now, and I don't know how I'm going to pay for groceries next week, or something like that. So, but it's
Totally.
important to stop and just take a breath and do nothing, or do something that you would normally do, but not turn it into a work thing. That's something I've struggled with for a long time. I've gotten better, I'd say, but I still have that in my mind. I'm like, how can I monetize this and make some money?
Right.
And man, yeah, it's like I like hearing other people's insight on that. 'Cause I'm always trying to self improve, and because it's not just about me. I'm hanging out with other people. I tend to forget that they're not in the same mindset as me. My ADHD brain just doesn't work the same way as everybody else's.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, it's
thinking
good
about,
to have that kind of self check and self reflection of like, at least you're thinking about it. So many people
oh
would
yeah,
not be thinking about it. So that's step one, I think, is, what can I do? And then answers will come. It'll
Yeah.
kind of, sometimes it just kind of makes itself clear. Like it made itself clear to me that I need sleep.
Sleep. Yeah. Oh
Like,
yeah. Sleeps in. Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
And the tough things with self projects too is like you can work on something forever and continue making it perfect forever. Like editing a video, you could always add more effects, more
Yeah.
transitions, more like, should I add some like subtext on the bottom? Like there's so much stuff you can do that like even when you're like, all right, this is done, this is ready for public consumption, you're like, ooh, I could have done this, I could have done that. And like sometimes it's okay to just be like, you know what? It is this way. I am happy with the way that it is. It's just going out this way because if I think about it too much, I will spend the rest of my life trying to make this
Yeah.
stupid video perfect.
It's well, that's the thing. It'll never be perfect. Even when you think something's perfect, yeah, it's not perfect. It's just not impossible. I spent so many
Yeah.
years of my life is wasted with the idea in my head. I'm like, okay, I want to make a documentary or a film or just YouTube videos or whatever it is. I'm like, okay, I want to do that. I'm going to do that. But first, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to learn everything. I want to be
Yeah.
perfect. I want this thing's going to be good. So I spent years of just watching other amazing talented people create stuff that looking back wasn't necessarily amazing things, but that's how they got to where they are today because they started making the stuff bad now and then got good. So I spent so many years of wasting my own time. So when I hear people like say, okay, I want to get into a hobby or a craft or whatever, and I want to just watch videos and educate myself, go to school or whatever it is, just start doing it. Just do it now. Like on my channel, a lot of people want to get into instant photography. Go shoot it. The downside of instant photography is there's a monetary value per mistake you make because you're using film,
Yeah.
and so that held me back for a long time. But I realized how much I still enjoyed the process, even of getting bad photos. That you just gotta accept that and go for it. And as you shoot the photos, they're going to be better and better every single time. You just can't be afraid to be imperfect, right? Is that the right phrase?
Yeah.
I think that's the right phrase. But
I so much so, yes. I that gave me so many little thoughts bubbling in my head where like perfection it truly doesn't exist and as somebody who I have to put myself out there all the time at auditions and stuff and I was just thinking like about how I'm having a hard time right now. I know I am booked right now. I know that I should not take on more jobs, but I have a little guilty part in the back of me that's like, don't stop checking for auditions.
yeah,
Keep looking for auditions. Like, what if that thing that you're supposed to find is out there right now? And it's like, you know what? I'm just going to be happy with what I have right now. I'm paying the bills, and we don't need to keep looking and keep reaching and keep whatevering right now is this and we'll move on to whatever at some point but going to all of these auditions like I have been to around 60-ish. I did not keep count at the beginning of the year. I kind of wish I did so I could look at like what I submitted for versus what I auditioned for versus what I booked and all of that but there are some auditions that will break your heart. You will go in and you will think, you know, I've waited my whole life to be here. This is the moment. Here we are. And then immediately they like take one look at you and basically throw you over to the no pile.
you're too
And
short. Your
or
hair's not long enough, or your
yeah,
smile's too big.
yeah.
It's weird
Oh,
stuff
it
like
doesn't
that.
even have to be like something specifically wrong with you. It could be like we cast your brother already and he's a redhead. You're not. So you don't look like you're his brother. So
Yeah,
or like something like it can be something as silly as that or just you go to all these auditions and you know that you want to do well and there are times where you know you can do well and despite that knowledge that you could be doing really well at it you are feeling yourself bomb it like you know it's not going well and you can't do anything about it. Like you can feel it like you can feel the casting director like kind of losing attention or they stop looking at you and they start looking down at their notes or like they're on their laptop or whatever, and they're not even watching your performance anymore. You can just feel them checking out, and you're like, oh God, like turn this car around. How do I get out of this car crash in motion? And you just kind of have to realize that like it's playing out, and you gotta play it through to the end. And then afterwards, you leave that room and you go back to your car, and you're just like, oh God, why am I in this industry? I'm the worst actress that ever was. And you feel awful after some of these auditions that like are things that you went out for, that you thought you could book, and then turns out that wasn't the one for you that day. But then other ones end up being the one for you, and it's an awful balance. That's part of the thing, but like you deal with so much rejection that I kind of feel like is those Polaroids being spit out of the camera, where you're like, I think this is going to be a great picture. Click. Ooh, what is that? How did that happen? Where you were really trying hard to create great art, and then it just did not work in your favor. That's a part of the whole being an artist thing that is rough. It's rough to deal with.
And it's one of the things like I really admire about you is that you go out there, you're not afraid of failing. And I love failures. People are like, oh, that's the hardest thing to say. No. Failures means they went out there and tried, and then they're still trying. I'll take a failure over a big talker any day of the week, or however you want to describe people that just sit in the corner and say, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, but they're not actually going out there and trying and failing. And you're not giving up, and that's super cool. And that's probably why I want you on the podcast and introduce you to everybody else, because I think what you're doing is great. And fail better.
Thank you. I'm trying really hard, actually, and
it shows.
It's nice to hear that feedback. I didn't really start pursuing this really actively until the past year-ish. I had always
my next question was, how'd you get in? How'd you get started? That was going to be my next question. So this is great. Well, please,
great little segue there. Step ahead of you.
I know. Mind.
I got started. I mean, if we really want to go into how I got started in the industry, my mother, I could talk about stage shows, so I'll drop the whole story. My mother and father met in theater. My dad does not really do theater. It was like a little short phase for him, but it was a much bigger thing for my mom. And they met in theater. She was the dance captain. My dad couldn't dance. It was a perfect match. And so they met doing theater, and then my mom was pregnant with me while on stage in the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. So she was a pregnant whore in Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. And that was my first time on stage, technically, was in utero. And I have not left the stage since then. I was not doing anything professional as a child, but I was doing stuff. I started dance class when I was 3 years old. So I went on stage for my recitals and things like that. Then when I was 9 years old, when I was 8 years old, my mom did a show, and I spent a lot of time backstage, and there were other children who were in that show. And I was kind of like, wait a second, they can do, I want to do that. Mom, can I do that? So the next summer, another musical, if I could talk, that'd be great. Another musical came around, and I was like, hey, Mom, I want to do that this time. And I was basically cast because my mom was in it, and they were like, well, she's not going to do it if her daughter's not in the show. So I kind of came along as a 1-2 deal in that one.
Nepotism at its finest.
Yeah. Full nepotism. I was just a kid in the chorus in that show, and it was a little community theater production, so we weren't being paid. It wasn't like anything big at all. But, so that was my first show, was being on stage with my mom in a little community theater production. Started doing a lot of shows in community theater. I did like 30, 40 shows by the time I graduated high school, and so I kind of juggled being a dancer and being an actress, where I started doing competition dance, but I was also starting to act. And I did a bunch of shows. So there was this really weird period between the ages of like 11 to 14 or 15 where you're too old to be the cute little kid on stage, but you are not yet old enough to be the teenager. And I love to refer to that as my like midlife crisis of my childhood, where I was like, oh, there's not really a spot for me. I don't fit anywhere. So I actually started doing a lot of backstage stuff during those years where I would do stage management, or I would be a stagehand, or I would, like there was a production of Dracula where I hid underneath the coffin and held a fog machine like this during the scene so that the fog would spew out really cool over the side of the coffin. And things like that where I kind of gained more respect for what happens around me and like what else is happening on stage and backstage, and spent some time in lighting booth and sound booths and all of that. Then by the time I was in high school, I was accomplished enough as a dancer to start doing choreography for musicals at this community theater, because they were like, oh, Corinne can dance, she can do it. So I started doing kind of more like behind the scenes stuff. Like I would be there for the casting conversations and, telling the director, oh, I kind of like this girl. She did great when we did our little dance call for auditions. I would prefer her for this part because I really wanted to do a cool little dance sequence with her for this number. So I kind of dipped my hand in every little basket and tried out everything possible while I was at this community theater. And I owe a lot to that because I was able to try a whole lot of stuff while I was there. Then I graduated, went to college, and I'm not shouting out the community theater, the Amesbury Playhouse, because it is no longer around. It actually closed down right as I went to college, which was really weird timing, but I think in the long run of everything ended up being good for me, because I think if it was still around, I would have held back from college and kind of been like, oh, I still want to do stuff, and not kind of been like, well, that's not there anymore. I'm going to dive straight into college. When I got to college, I started doing a lot of comedy stuff. So I was kind of like, I've done the theater, I've done all of this, I want to try something new. So I still did theater stuff. I still did like a murder mystery dinner theater like show and some straight plays and stuff. But I mostly did comedy while I was in college. I founded the sketch comedy troupe over at my college that has now been running for 11 years.
Nice.
And yeah, it's really crazy to see, because the kids who are running it now don't even know who the hell I am. And I've never met them, and they don't know who I am. Like if I start talking about their troupe, they're gonna be like, who the hell is this lady? And it's like, I'm the lady who got you funding and decided that I'm gonna make a comedy troupe. Yeah, I'm your founding mother. It's weird to have your projects go on and have a life without you, but that's also something about being an artist, where you put something out there and then it kind of creates its own energy and becomes its own thing. It's interesting. Yeah, definitely. But alas, so I did a ton of comedy in college. I had a little bit of a rough go of it when I was going through college as well. I had a trauma crap. Everyone's got stuff that they're working through, and I was particularly working through stuff at that age. So I was going through a rough time, and actually, so to kind of get into it, I had a boyfriend at that time who I broke up with, and then I didn't want to be anywhere where he could be, especially normal. Because, well, yeah, but it was also because I kind of started dabbling in drugs, and then I decided I wanted to get sober, which was it was a hard thing to do. It was a very hard thing to do, but it was something I did, and so that was part of that decision, and me kind of stepping away from the comedy scene because I didn't want to be around the same environments that had kind of led me to these poor decision things that I shouldn't have gotten myself into. I was really like I was lucky that I got out when I did, and was able to have that kind of foresight to be like, oh, wait, this isn't what I want. This isn't
Yeah.
the life that I'm trying to have, and kind of get out of that. But that did lead to a period of time where I kind of stepped back from art and just started, working office jobs and not pursuing the dream to the extent that I had been in the past. Like I had been doing um, dozens of projects every like year or two, and it moved back to like I would do one or two maybe a year, where I did some like web series appearances. I was still living in New England at the time, so it was like super small projects. And then I got an invitation to do Steel Magnolias, the show, in a big room, not even in a theater. It was just like a big room attached to a theater, with some friends that I'd done theater with before. They invited me without an audition to come do this show, and I was like, oh, how can I say no to that? Like, sure. So I did that. And then the same theater that I had been a part of in my childhood, some people from that theater came back to create more theater. They opened their own theater company. And so some of my old theater friends started to kind of migrate over to this actually a live theater company. And they decided to do Dracula, which I had previously, held the fog machine when I was like 13 years old. And then when I was 16 years old, I played the Mina Harker character in a production of Dracula. They did it every single year at this old playhouse. And I played the lead girl when I was a junior in high school. Which I think I was probably the youngest girl who'd ever done it at that point, because it was usually a girl like in her 20s or so. And then they brought back Dracula, the exact same script, because it's their own script, it's their own interpretation of it. They brought back that script that had been used at this dinner theater for like 30 years. And they brought it back. And then I was like, I'll hate myself if I don't try to do this one more time before I am too old to do it again. So let's go do it. So I auditioned. It was like a 2.5 hour drive from where I was living at the time. But I was like, screw it. The memories, it's worth it. I don't even care. And I got it. I did it. It was a 2.5 hour drive to rehearsals and to every show, and I struggled with traffic. I was late, I think, every single day. But luckily they knew me. So they were like, it's okay, we understand.
How long did you do that for?
Well, that was just it was a couple weekends. Like I think it was 2 or 3 weekends of shows. It wasn't like a crazy long, but it was, it was a lot. And I was doing that while I was working. I don't remember. Oh, that was right when I started. I was working at a music school at the time. I've done so many jobs throughout the years. It's hard to keep track of like, where was I? Oh yeah, I was there. I had just started working at this music school, and I was, working in the office, and I eventually started doing acting, theater teaching at this theater school. Can I talk at all today? I was teaching theater at this music school at the time. And so I started, after I did Steel Magnolias and after I did Dracula, I was kind of like, all right, the bug has hit again. I missed this. I feel more comfortable back on stage. There was a time where I kind of felt like a weird, just self-consciousness on stage, because it had been a while, and like putting yourself out there kind of does take something. And after I went through a period of like a lot of self-reflection and therapy and like all of that, it was a little hard to kind of jump back into it. But after doing these productions with people who I had known since I was a child, it kind of got me a little bit more comfortable with it. By this time I was like 26, I think. I had like just turned 26 around this time, and I was just getting back into it. And like, that seems like a little older than I would think somebody should be when they're just starting off. But like, that started to teach me as I was doing it that there is no limit. Like you don't, it's okay that I'm not a 22-year-old fresh out of college starting this. I'm starting it now, and at least I'm doing it. So uh,
Yeah.
I like kind of started to dabble in doing stuff a little bit more. And then I moved to San Francisco, and then the pandemic hit. And that did not slow me down. Luckily, I mean, I was going through a lot of the time. My partner was diagnosed with cancer and went through, like, he was diagnosed May 2020. So,
Whew.
pandemic hit in March. He was diagnosed with cancer in May, and it was terrifying. They were talking when he was first diagnosed about keeping him inpatient while he was going through chemo because they were afraid of him leaving the hospital and being exposed to stuff that they didn't really know, like what it was going to do to him. So they just didn't want him to go anywhere. So at first they were talking about keeping him inpatient, and I was like, oh my God, am I ever going to see him again? Like, if the chemo kills him, am I even going to see him again if they keep him in the hospital? So I was, dealing with all of that crap, but they, thank God, they let him come home. And then I had to quit my job because I couldn't bring anything home that would hurt him.
Right.
I actually got a full doctor's note that said, Corinne cannot leave the house, basically, except for stuff. So I started working entirely from home. So because of that, I was just trying to find stuff to do. I was so bored. So I was kind of like, oh, what is there around? And during that time period, a lot of audiences, because I don't know if people realize this, a lot of audiences for stuff are paid. If you've seen game show audiences, sometimes they're paid. Audiences at court shows, or audiences for like reality game show type, like win the contest kind of shows. Like a lot of those audiences are paid, and so I found out about that. I didn't know that beforehand. So I was like, oh wait, you can sign up for stuff and like get paid for, like, they were doing it on Zoom, so you could just sit at home in front of your laptop and just, yay, awesome. Like, that was all they were asking for, and I was like, I can do that. Sign me right up. So I just started doing that because why not? What else was I doing? But it ended up, I really, really liked it because the first couple ones I did, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, I get to see the pre-show. I get to see the behind the scenes, what it's really like. Like, I did a couple of like live TV segments. So I would get to see what it was like when they called live, like what was changing when that was happening. And that was really exciting to somebody who hadn't been on like a set before. Like, I had done community theater was the big thing that I had really done at that point. And I hadn't really been on sets and stuff. So getting to see all of that and getting to see how all of that was working was really great education for what I'm doing now. But it was just really cool to do at the time. That went well. And then they asked me to come back again. And then again. And then they had another show that the same team was putting on, like they were doing a pilot. And so they asked people who had been part of the show before if they would be audience for this pilot. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? What else am I doing? And then they asked people who were in that audience to film this other segment. They were like, if you've got extra time this afternoon, come join us for this workout segment. And I was like, all right, well, I'll do that. And after doing that, they ended up contacting me and saying, oh, well, the show's been picked up. We're going to be running it live in the fall. Since you were part of our workout segment, would you like to be part of our workout segment on TV? I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Like, I'd love to come back. And they were like, okay, great. We're filming in New York. And I was like, oh, I don't live there. They're like, we are going to fly you out to New York. And I was like, oh, okay, let's go. That was so cool. Yeah, that was the coolest thing that had happened to me at that point.
When was it? Out of curiosity, when was that?
That was October 2021. Oh. So it was right around the time it started to be safe for me to leave the house again. My partner finished chemo in December 2020. So he was about...
I was just curious because I was in New York like 5 times in 2020. I was curious to see if we were like in the city at the same time.
Yeah, it was 2021. It was when we were like, it was around the year mark of him finishing chemo that it started to get safe for me to start leaving the house again. So that was kind of my first leaving the house experience. Actually, was getting getting picked up literally outside my front door by a guy in a tux in like one of those like fancy black cars,
That's
and
so
he
cool.
drove me to the airport
No
and
way.
got on the plane, and then there was a guy holding my name on the other side of the plane.
They do that in real life?
And yeah, it was so cool. And then I got to stay in a hotel overnight and like all that fun stuff
Look
that,
at you. Living
it
the
was,
dream.
it was so cool, an honor. And I still can't really wrap my head around it sometimes. Like, wait a second, why on earth did they choose to fly me out to do all that? Like, they really didn't have to do that, and they did. Why? But it was so special, and I honestly cannot thank them enough for that, because it gave me a confidence that I was kind of like, I had a lot of fun doing that. I want to do that every day if I could do that every day. So I started going out to auditions for stuff. And I mean, when I said going out, it was to filming at home, doing Zoom auditions, that kind of stuff. But I started submitting myself to things that like previously I probably would have been like, no, I don't know anything about that kind of stuff. But that landed me in a very special place a year ago, where I got my first real paid acting gig that I was at for a whole year. And that was also life changing on so many levels, because being my first paid acting gig was like, oh my God, I can get paid to do this. I love doing this so much.
Yeah.
Um, I realized I didn't want to be doing other stuff, and kind of realized where I had gone wrong in so many jobs that I had been pursuing that like I didn't have a passion for. So that's why I wasn't doing that well with them, and kind of feeling down on myself was like, it's because I wasn't doing the thing that I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And like landing this gig, it finally felt like I was at that place. I'm getting so emotional
It's
where
okay.
like I
This is
was
good. This
supposed
is
to be
good.
there. And it felt so good to kind of
Yeah.
get that validation from an outside source of like, we will pay you to be here. Like, we
Yeah.
want you to be here. And that was really special. But also being on this project was life changing. Like, not just the being on stage, getting the feedback from the audience, being part of this thing that was so much bigger than myself, but the people that you meet, that brought me so many places that I would not be. So I was in San Francisco when I got cast in this show, did 6 months of this show in San Francisco, and it brought me to Los Angeles for 6 months of the run of this show in Los Angeles. And that leap to come to Los Angeles, I would never have done if there were not a job that said, come to Los Angeles
Yeah.
with us. So that leap wouldn't have happened. It was something I had always wanted to do. When I played with my dolls when I was a child, I would pretend they were actresses, and I would
Yeah.
pretend they were making movies, because even as like a little like 5, 6 year old girl, that was what I wanted to do. But it was hard to admit to myself that I wanted to do that, because I didn't think that I was Margot Robbie or, like I didn't think that I was Britney Spears, and like, it's okay that I'm not, I don't have to be those people to still have a place in the industry. There are
But you
so many
kind of are.
characters and so many things that are happening. Whatever. But like, there's a lot happening. And so there are a lot of roles to fill, and a lot more than I realized there were, that I could be doing. And so being part of this project that I went on last year, meeting these other people, I got to see what other working actors were doing. I mean, that clued me in onto, hey, like backstage, getting ready for the show, where do you find those jobs? What
Yeah.
website are you using? Oh, okay. So that's what they do. Oh, okay. And like that kind of just being around it for so much started to fill me in like, okay, so that's what fellow actors are doing. Okay, I get it. Okay, so this is what I need to get. This is what I need to do. This is the starting process of the whole thing. And that kind of filled me in on how the hell you're supposed to do this stuff. So I wasn't jumping into living in Los Angeles blindly. And I also had a built-in friend group from this production of people who I see all the time. Hung out with some of them yesterday, and so I have those friends, but I also have these friends who will invite me onto like random projects, and I'll do the same for them. Where I was working on a short film doing background, and they sent out an email that was like, "Oh, we need a few extra people," and so I was like, "Hey, friends, they need a few extra people, and if you want to come join, here's the information, email them." And then one of my friends ended up joining me on set, and it was great. It's so much more fun having a friend on set for the day and someone to talk to between takes. So having that kind of network really helped a lot, because they helped me find jobs. They helped keep me employed. They showed me where to find jobs if it weren't jobs that they were referring me to. The job that I'm doing for like the theater camp in the theater school, that job I found through one of my friends at the job that I had been at. And that I have them to thank for so much, that like I wouldn't, all of the things that I've done, it's hard to explain how I got here without literally starting from the beginning, because I feel like all of the things I have done led me to this point, but it was never a solid trajectory that like I couldn't have gone to myself at 22 in college and been like, you won't be doing comedy exactly. Like it's not exactly what you are doing right now, but you will still love doing it, I promise. So it kind of started to like form itself and make sense on its own just by me pursuing things as they came. But now I'm doing a variety of things. Like I have done improv, I've done short films, music videos, game shows, all kinds of crap. And I don't think any of it would have happened without any of the rest of it happening.
Oh yeah, you have to struggle to get where you are.
Yeah.
There's very few people. I mean, even then they'll probably even say the same thing, where it's like I had to go through the mud to get to where I am now, or I have to just literally go back to what I was saying there before. Yeah, I had to fail over and over and over again before I got here. And even then, sometimes you don't feel like you've like quote unquote made it, or you're successful or whatever. Like you still feel like, yeah, I'm here. I'm getting my bills paid, but man, it just feels like it's gonna be over tomorrow. I feel that every day, and I can imagine in your situation, like and what you do, how you can feel.
There's still times where I find myself doubting myself. Where there was one audition that I just bombed it. I didn't want to bomb it, but I just did. And it was one of those things where it was like a perfect storm of like I had just gotten sick, and I wasn't sick anymore. I wasn't contagious or anything, but like my throat still hurt. So like I wasn't feeling 100%. Like I wasn't really on my game. And then I came from work. So I had just worked like 8 hours, and then I ran to this audition, and I was running late. So I was stressed and I wasn't feeling good. And like all of these other emotions were like kind of bubbling up inside of me, where I was not on my game. Like I came into the room, instead of like having that like pre-audition pep talk of like, you're great, you're going to do great, remember the stuff, like all of that. It was like, oh my God, am I going to get there? Oh my God, oh, there's the door there. How are we getting in here? Like, oh my God, we're here. Like it was all of that, instead of the like kind of soothing talk before I got into the room. So I just wasn't in a good headspace when I got there. And then like by the time I was auditioning, it was just like a car crash that I had to just kind of watch it happen and let it happen to me. And then like it did not feel good, and it didn't help. This is no fault of theirs at all whatsoever. It did not help that I had a friend love them so much dearly that was also at that audition who nailed it. And I could tell they were nailing it. It was like, oh, well, they're going to get it and I'm not going to get it. And does that mean that they're more talented than me? And like, that means that I should quit. Like, I'm doing terribly and look at how good they're doing. And it's hard not to get stuck in that like stupid comparison is the thief of joy, but like it's really hard to not get caught up in it when you are literally being compared. That is what an audition is comparing actors. So I went through that audition. I came home and I not even gonna lie, I just broke down in tears and was all like, why am I doing this? I'm in the wrong career. Like, why am I? And the next morning I kind of woke up and was like, well, that was yesterday's mood. That is not today's mood. I know why I'm in this career. I know that it is the thing that brings me joy more than anything else that I've ever done in my entire life. This is the thing that I want to do. This is the thing that like sharing it with people brings me fulfillment. It makes me feel very fulfilled. And I don't want to be doing other things, but there are definitely those days where I'm like, dear God, why am I doing this?
Yeah. I know exactly that feeling. I'm better off just going to McDonald's and flip burgers. At least I'll have like an income at the end of the week, like guaranteed money. I don't even know how I've gotten this far, to be honest.
Yeah. And like we were talking about earlier, there is that feast or famine kind of mentality where there is like the moment where you're doing pretty good. And then there's the moments where you're like, oh my God, why am I doing this? I'm making no money at all. But then it kind of evens itself out and it comes back around. And one thing that's nice about the industry is like you meet people on projects all the time that end up helping you out on future projects. I experienced that even doing my community theater stuff, where people would refer me to like, hey, we've worked with Corinne before, let's invite her to do Steel Magnolias without an audition, kind of thing, where like people will start to know you and then they're just kind of like, oh, let's reach out to Chris. He knows this stuff. Like, let's have Chris come in and film some stuff for him. He's great. Where it starts to kind of like work kind of starts finding itself sometimes, which is crazy. But
I've always wanted in life is like not a team, like a friend group that's in the same world as me, or like same relative work. So like, I know you're an actress, or I may know a couple other camera guys, or I know an editor, director, all these types of things. I got you, which is amazing and love it. You live in Los Angeles. I don't. But like locally here, like I just don't really have access to the ability to put myself into that world a little bit. Like I have to travel and go do the stuff on my own. And then even then I might meet some people, but they're just either YouTubers, which perfectly fine. Nothing against that. One of my best friends is a YouTuber.
Nothing wrong with that.
And nothing wrong with that. I mean, any disrespect. But also they live so far away. I can't just call them up one day. I'm like, hey, I have a really cool, unique, crazy idea. You want to just film something today or something?
Yeah,
I've always wanted to have that like core group of people, just be like-minded, like creating stuff, and even just being like, hey, this is an experiment. I don't know if this is going to work. Let's just try, and if it doesn't work, hey, well, hopefully we learn something along the way. I've tried to fabricate that, which is a horrible thing to even, I don't know, think about. But I would try to like make people interested. Like I try to get my friends that are not artists, they're not interested in any form of storytelling or camera operate tech, none of that. I'm like, you're gonna be. So like I'd give them a camera and try to teach them all this stuff. I would bring them on like road trips and we're gonna film documentaries and stuff, and like that is awful.
Friends who have reached out since I started doing what I'm doing now, kind of being like, well, how do I do that? And then I'll tell them, and then they'll like, it's like halfway through my sentence, they lose all interest. They're like, oh, it takes work. No, I'm not doing that. Like, it does take work. You do have to actually want it and like really do the stuff to get it done.
My friend came out to me like 3-4 years ago. I was like, hey, I want to make a slasher movie. Would you direct it? I'm like, I'm in. So like, I was like, sure, let's do it. So I started, walking him through the process of this stuff. And then he's like, I wrote a script and I read it and I'm like, well, this is really good. I mean, it was basically and movie pretty much, which whatever. It would have been fun to make. I was like,
Do you want to reword that?
oh yeah, shoot. It was Wednesday the 14th movie.
Yeah,
Thank
the
you for that.
classic Wednesday the 14th, my favorite holiday.
Working on with them, and I told them what I was going to do for my roles and stuff. Like, give me like a week to prep and stuff. And I was like doing this stuff. I was like location scouting and doing these things, and then I come back to him. I was like, "Hey, did you finish the script?" He's like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm over it." And after all that,
Yeah, that's rough. People don't know how much stuff goes into the stuff that we are watching. Like, it obviously there's costuming and props and sets and actors and camera, everybody, that sound and the like person actually holding the camera, then somebody who's looking at the feed who can coordinate. Like there's so many active
hmm
parts on the set. And then not only that, like for afterwards for editing and all, like there's so many moving parts. And the thing is, like everybody has to be into it.
yeah,
Even the background actors have to be into it. I had a friend who used a bunch of our friend group for background for a music video that she was putting together, because she was like, I need actual actors to do this, because if I use my friends who don't get it, they're not going to understand, like, even doing background, there's a reason you have to stand where you're standing, because it
yeah,
fills out the camera frame in an appealing way that looks good.
yeah,
But then when they're shooting the take from different spots and everything, you have to do basically what you did in all of the other shots, or
yeah,
else the continuity is going to be messed up. Like if the scene starts out and then you take off your hat and then you put it down on your right side over there, when the scene starts again, you better have that hat on your head and you better place it in the exact same spot that you had just put it,
yeah,
because it needs to look the same at all those angles, and you need to try and take it off of your head at the same line that was just said that you took it off on before, so that it all adds up. Where there's a lot of thought process that goes into that, like, if you just throw like regular everyday average folk onto the set that are non-industry people, they're not going to understand that that's something that they have to do unless it's explained to
yeah.
them, and you can't spend the whole day explaining to them what they're supposed to be doing.
No, there's a process, and they have to trust it. And finding people that have that same level of commitment, passion, whatever you want to call it, is extraordinarily rare.
There are a lot of moving parts. Even on small productions, there are so many moving parts where, like, even if you have the actors come on set, hair and makeup ready, and, provide their own costuming and everything, you need a set for them to come to. And it needs to look like it's supposed to. Like, you need to have
hmm
the props ready and the backdrop looking the way you need it to, and like if there's anything on the wall, does it need to be taken down because it has a brand on it, and like there's so much happening that, like, things that, like, you might not even think of. When I've been on bigger budget stuff, I have to make sure that my tattoos are covered, because technically the artist, like my tattoo artist, could go after the production if they show his art without his permission, and they
Interesting.
can't like go get his permission like out off, like, they're not doing that. Like,
Yeah.
why would they waste their time to do that? So they have to make sure that those tattoos are covered when you're on set. You can't wear any brands or anything like that like have a logo on them. Like, it says, what if it says Pepsi on your shirt and then Coca-Cola is sponsoring this movie? They're
Right.
not going to be too happy that Pepsi was on the actor's shirt, or whatever it is. Oh, I'm excited for when the strike is over and we can more openly talk about the many shows and things that we have mutual love for.
Once this is all over, the strike's done and everything, I want to have you back on, because it'd be really, really cool to talk about the projects that you've already been working on, and the stuff that
Yeah.
you're going to be working on, but also how the heck we even met each other in the first
Yeah,
place.
that's kind of a crazy story, honestly. I mean,
Yeah.
briefly talk about it. I mean, ugh, there's just parts we'd have to leave out that would make it less fun to
Yeah. I guess the tease could just
understand.
be that year-long project you did last year. I happened to kind of just uh, crossed paths
Yeah,
in that journey of yours, and
yeah.
kind of just stalked you after that, I guess. But not really.
Well, it was kind of a mutual stalking because you had posted a video of your time visiting the project that I was
Yeah.
on. And since I was on that project, I was looking for content that people were posting because I wanted to see,
So you were
like,
stalking me.
I'm in that video. What am I doing? Like, what did they cut out? Like, what parts did they cut? Do I look stupid? Like, what
Always.
exactly is out there of me? So I was looking for content on that, and I was like, oh my God, I remember this guy. He was so cool because you had hung out for a while, and you know, those people, audience members, you don't always realize you do make a huge impression on the performers when you give a lot of feedback, when you're loud during like a sit down kind of performance or during an interactive one. When you give us feedback and like you play along, oh my God, it's the best thing that ever happens. Because there are so many people who are just like, and like walk away from you. That like the people who play along, it's so much fun. It makes your day fun, and like you get to play in this world together, and you came through and you played along, and it made an impression on me. I remembered you from it and was like, oh, if I weren't working right now, I would be like, hey, you're cool, let's hang out sometime. But I was obviously like working, and that would be
Right.
weird to do. So especially in the context of what I was supposed to be doing, it'd be weird to address you in any way. So you know, I wasn't able to address you at the time as like person to person, like, oh hey, like we seem to have a lot in common, like let's talk about regular things
Right.
in a normal sense. And you know, you posted that video and I was like, oh, that's that guy. I could talk to him. Would it be weird if I reached out? But you did, you had a particularly tough experience that
Yeah.
day. And because of that, I felt less weird reaching out because I felt like it was appropriate for me to say, oh, I'm so sorry that happened. I hope you had a great time. Anyways, we were really thankful to have you.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Years some later,
Yeah.
literally the
It is
year was
really
in
crazy.
July. Then we
Yeah.
we became friends over the internet pretty much. Just chatted up a bunch, and then the next time I got to see you, but it was still you in character. And then it was until
Yeah.
the very next day that I actually got to meet and hang out with just you. And I felt kind
Yeah.
of bad because I was with two other people, and we were just like off in the corner pretty much, just like it's just like talking as like real human beings like the whole night.
Well, it was like finally meeting a friend that like it was basically like meeting an online friend who had never met in real life before, even though we had literally met in real life before meeting online.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's,
super strange is the only word I have for it.
it's a fitting it's a
Yeah.
fitting experience that we had.
One of the first things you said to me was like, "Oh, is your voice okay?" And then I was like, "Yeah, it's fine." And I was like, "Oh my God, I don't talk like this when I'm being the character that you met me
No,
as.
you were
Like I would
definitely
talk
you were no you
like
know
way higher pitch because I was playing younger than myself. So I
yeah.
was trying to emphasize like more youthful stuff. So I wasn't talking in my normal voice.
Even after knowing you and talking to you a lot, you definitely had a raspier voice when I did meet you the first time, because you did lose your voice a little bit. But your voice was different, and it is different than that character. But it wasn't like, it was definitely crazy noticeable. It was really deep. I can
Yeah.
tell that you lost your voice. It's probably a good thing that you're not still doing that, because the long term effects that could have been
Yeah.
damaging. Because that's your moneymaker. That all this, it's a
Right.
moneymaker.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, there's still money to be made, even if things about you change. It's
Oh
not that
sure.
it won't be the same money. Like obviously, right now I am making the 20 something brunette. 5'2" girl money. Like wherever I could fit, you could fit me. But if I became raspy voice girl and cut my hair, I would fit into different roles.
Sure.
If I like got to a huge car crash and had like scars on my face, I could fit into different roles. There are parts for different types of people, and that was something that I didn't. I had this idea in my head of what Hollywood is, of like all these beautiful people, and there are all these beautiful people. Don't get me wrong, there are very beautiful people out there, but like there are roles for weird looking people. Like they want average looking people for stuff. They like, especially for like commercial stuff, they want people who look like the people who are going to buy the product. So there are a lot of there's places for everybody, and even if things about me change, there will still be a place for me. I sure hope.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So to wrap up, is there anything right now that you can actually talk about that you're working on that you can promote that for people to maybe come see or watch?
The aforementioned Multiverse concert series, 501c3 nonprofit that I work with, they put on art and science events where they combine music and some kind of art with actual science. And we have an upcoming event where we're going to have people, speakers from Harvard and NASA, intertwined with an electro-symphonic symphony and some like crazy visuals in a planetarium over in Boston. That they're going to be putting on Mars Symphony. So it is a symphony all about Mars and that planet that is out there, Mars. And so they're gonna talk about Mars. You're gonna learn some stuff about Mars, and it's basically to make science more accessible to regular, average, everyday people. I would never be able to tell you anything about Mars, but they like I do media and promotion stuff for this organization, and they put on really cool events. They've done stuff for climate hope, which was all about climate change is happening, but there are cool things happening in the scientific community that give us hope that it's not the end of the world, literally. So they did a whole thing about climate hope, and they've done stuff on black holes, on coral reefs, on polymers, on all kinds of different scientific stuff that like I hardly understand, but then they do a really cool event on it, and I'm like, oh, I kind of get it now, and it makes it a little more understandable for regular, average, everyday people. And so I'm working on that right now. I always am going to be posting on social media about whatever I am working on actress wise. So my social media is just my name, Corinne Decost. CORINNEDECOST. And it's one R, two N's. That's always what people get messed up. But that's where you can find me. And I've got some movies that are coming up. They are in pretty early production. One of them I will be filming next week, but that does not mean that you will see it in 2 weeks. Right. We will have filmed it, and then they will be doing editing, and there's going to be some voiceover components, some visual effects, and stuff like that. That is going to take a hot minute for the final product to actually be accessible to everybody. But I on social media is the easiest way to keep up of like what I have going on right now and like what kind of stuff you can see me in. But yeah, all of that stuff's available. You can always, poke around. I have a website and obviously IMDb where you can see past stuff that I've done. But I am going to be super busy with filming coming up, with the aforementioned Can't Talk About project coming up the next couple of months. And, I'll have random things coming out that like a game show appearance, music video that like I technically shot forever ago, but it trickles out on its own timeline. So I'll let you know when things are happening.
Don't you have a court thing too? Court TV? Didn't you do something with that?
Yeah, I have no idea that's coming out. So I filmed that back in February, and it's usually about 6 months later that it comes out. So like now, like any day now, that could possibly drop, and I'll be horrified. But that's coming
I'm excited.
sometime.
You let me
Yeah.
know when that comes out. I'm gonna be watching
Oh,
it.
for sure. For sure, I will let you know because it'll be entertaining. It was a really fun day on set, and God knows what happened in that edit, what it's going to look like. Because when for things like that where you are doing improv and they've clearly given you a character, but they haven't told you what character it is. When you figure out what they're asking for,
You mean it's
you give
fake?
it to them.
You mean the court shows are fake?
Television is produced. What?
What?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's crazy.
my mom didn't know that. I was talking to her about some. Actually, I was talking about you too long ago.
Yeah.
I said she's gonna be on some court stuff. She's like, "Oh, what'd she do? What happened?" I'm like, "She's an actress." She's like, "What do you mean?" Because my mom watches court shows, I guess, a lot. Didn't know this.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, yeah, sorry, they're fake."
Sorry. I mean, it's still entertaining, and it usually is based on something that happened. Like it is a real
Right.
reality-like situation.
Yeah.
But people also don't realize that you audition to do game shows. Like they want to make sure that you're interesting enough to be on television and have people
Yeah.
not change the channel.
It's an
So
entertainment
they
business.
want people who are, yeah, they want people who will react to stuff. And like when you win something, they don't want you to be like, okay, cool, and then like walk off to the side. They want you, oh my God, I wanted this my whole life. Like they're looking for people who can serve that. And so I you audition for it, you get in, and so yeah, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes that people don't realize. Surprise.
Yeah, links to everything where you can find her and stuff will be in the description. So be sure to go check her out. Anything you want to end on? Final line? Any final thoughts? Anything we should know?
Final thought, basically, thank you for having me, thank you for like talking about literally anything anytime, but like specifically having me to talk about like what this is like, what my whole life is like, what on earth I am doing right now, and for giving me the chance to do this again in a way that is safe and will not mess up my career in the future. I really do appreciate it because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
time out of your day, and I really, really appreciate the chance to come on here and,
No, yeah,
share
anytime.
my life.
Anytime. It was just another excuse to talk to you and get you on here. So really,
Yeah,
I kind
it's a good
of
excuse to hang out with a friend.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
No problem whatsoever. Well, hey, thank you really so much. Honor and privilege to have you on here. I'll definitely be getting you back on because I want to be openly talk about some of this other stuff. So we'll get you back on
yes,
for
definitely,
sure.
yes.
The thing that you got going on next month, or yeah, whatever the next couple of months.
Yeah,
I'll be coming and seeing you there, and I definitely want to talk about that and how more in depth about how we met and stuff in that project alone. So thank you guys so much
yeah,
for watching, and thank you for coming on. Appreciate it.
thank you.
Oh man, I just love sitting down chatting with Corinne. She is amazing. So having to re-record the podcast really wasn't a big deal. Just another opportunity to sit down and talk to a great friend. If you guys want to learn more or get involved with the strikes that's going on and how you can help out, be sure to check the links in the description of this video. Because yes, this is also in video form. It's not just an audio podcast. It is available over on YouTube and Spotify in video form, and extended versions over in the members area. There's a lot I cut out. This was a hard one actually to cut out. We like to talk, and I think we have some great conversations. So if you want to listen to some of those, consider joining this Pitfire Club. Link is also in the description. This will not be the last time we hear from Corinne. Oh, no. We'll be getting her back on, talking a little bit more openly once the strikes are over, because there's some cool stuff that she's got cooking up. I can't wait to hear more about myself. So stay tuned for that. But until then, that's all I got for you in today's episode. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I'll see you in the next one. Now, get out there, make some art.